299,048 students in elementary and junior high school who classified as phtoko or absent from school for 30 plus days.
Mhm.
And that's a 22.1% increase from the previous year. That's a lot of people, man.
Excuse me, Masen.
Welcome to another episode of the Excuse Me Masen podcast. I'm your host, Saul, and joining me today is Devin once again. How's it going, bro?
Hello.
All right, so we're going to be talking today about how life has changed from before the pandemic, just what's different from before and after. So for example, like before the pandemic, everybody who wore masks was wearing a mask for probably like they either have a fever or they got a cold or the sniffles or mostly a lot of stuff dealing with seasonal allergies, right? And then they did a study actually during the 2010 and 2011 influenza season, and they found out that about 38% of Japanese adults reported wearing a face mask in public during that time. That's still a lot, but that's during flu season, right? So that's just kind of allowing us to gauge like that wearing a mask in Japan is pretty normal. But then after the pandemic, which is of course from 2023 to now, there's a lot more people using a mask. And that's even outside of those seasons that where a lot of people are having allergies. And then as of February 2023, a survey indicated that 83.7% of participants reported usually wearing a mask, with only 4.9% not wearing masks at all. So that's like crazy. I mean, it depends on who, of course, they interviewed, because it's going to be a number of people and probably different locations. But anyways, that's a lot more people in percentage. And the primary motivation cited during this study or during this survey was conformity to social norms. So it's not even related to seasonal allergies. It's just, hey, everybody's wearing a mask. I might as well wear a mask too.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
And yeah, even after the government eased the mask wearing guidelines in March 2023, many individuals continued the practice, especially in indoor settings and on public transportation. So did you notice a change? Because I noticed a massive change in people wearing masks.
Well, I'm just thinking now, and I didn't notice a change at all. Like we're talking about 2023, right? So 2023 afterwards and before. One of the biggest changes in my life was I used to live inside Tokyo, downtown Tokyo or whatever, like within Tokyo, like Ikebukuro area. And then right around 2022, I guess a year before 2023, I moved outside of Tokyo to Yokohama. And I'm thinking from 2023 until now, I rarely see, I see people wearing masks, but I see a lot of people not wearing masks at all. So to me, like, it just feels like I haven't seen this at all. Like where I'm at and where I see people, a lot of people don't wear masks compared to that time. But I don't know if that has anything to do with where I'm living.
Okay, it may, because you said the place where you live is less condensed than central Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Super residential area and wide open compared to where I was before.
Okay, yeah, then that makes a lot more sense because I live like in the city. I mean, you look out the window at any time of day or night, there's people walking around. It can be the middle of the night. There's still people walking around.
Yeah.
And yeah, my place is right on the highway. So there's also always cars driving by. Every time I leave the house, there's people wearing masks.
Have you noticed the increase? That doubling?
Double? Yeah, man. Because
really?
Like I said before, whenever I went to like a drugstore or a restaurant, the staff wouldn't be wearing a mask. Pretty much nobody would.
Yeah.
And I guess part of not wearing a mask at that time was a sign that the person was healthy. I don't think that was intentional. I think that just wearing a mask when you're in a public facing position doesn't communicate to the person you're going to be interfacing with that you're healthy. And it kind of makes it like, oh, this person might be sick. Like, why are you here? But then after the pandemic, it's like, hey man, you're going to be talking to me and my food is like right here.
Yeah.
Why don't you put on a mask so that I don't get whatever it is that you might have that nobody knows you have or don't have or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, so like the mentality toward it is also totally different.
Wow. Okay. It's weird. I guess like, man, over here where I'm at, I hear birds way louder than anything else. It's really quiet
Oh,
out
okay.
here. Like I've had even people like family members or like extended family come over, and like their first comment when they're out here is like, "It's so quiet out here." And I don't know,
Yeah.
that must have something to do with it. Like I live near a college with a bunch of like college kids going around doing whatever, like riding their bikes and stuff. So I don't know. To me, maybe it probably has more to do with where I'm living at compared to before. But I haven't
Mhm.
seen this at all.
What about at your job? Like in your job, do
Mhm.
you talk to like customers and stuff?
No, not at all. I'm in marketing and in digital marketing, so we're not even customer facing at all.
Okay,
We're
okay.
not like part of the sales team. I mean, we just sit there and we just do our stuff. Compared to like all the other people going out there like doing sales or interfacing with customers or clients or and stuff like that. No, not me.
Yeah. Yeah, then that's a huge difference between you and me as well, because of course, as a teacher, I have to
Mhm.
come into contact with my students and their parents. And then my wife being a dance teacher, with
Yeah.
as many students as she has, I mean, just especially in the past few months, I notice a lot more people wearing masks a lot more often, especially when they're shy. When it comes to kids, when they're shy, I notice they'll put a mask on. It's almost
Wow.
like hiding behind like your parents' leg or something when you meet somebody for the first time.
Are you comparing this to before 2023? Like that's what we're talking about, right? Like what you see now compared to before.
Yeah, we're talking about post-pandemic. I'm not necessarily comparing it to before the pandemic because it was very different. And we made that clear already that the mentality was completely different.
Mm.
But that brings me to the next part that I wanted to talk about is how before the pandemic, kids pretty much wore masks for health reasons. And it was like, you have the sniffles or you're coughing a lot. And this totally applies to my own kids, for example. The only time my wife would let my kids out the door if they were coughing is if they put a mask on. She didn't want to be held responsible when my kids' classmates got sick.
Mhm.
Because there's that grapevine or whatever you call it, that
Mhm.
the housewives gossip is also very prevalent here in Japan too, at least for where I live. And man, we could go down a rabbit hole with that. It's really annoying.
Oh,
But
man.
anyways, let me get back to it. So after the pandemic, I noticed that kids are wearing their masks for more than just health reasons. And I've seen this with students and I've seen this with even my own kids.
Mhm.
And yeah, they cited that it's mostly linked to increased self-consciousness and anxiety. So for example, nippon.com,
Yeah.
they highlighted a survey that revealed that over 30% of respondents expressed a desire to continue wearing masks even after the pandemic subsided. And this figure included over 50% of girls aged 16 to 19, suggesting a significant inclination among teenage girls to use masks for reasons beyond health, possibly as a means of concealing their faces due to self-esteem issues or social pressures. So many of my students, let me just tell you right now, every
Okay.
single high school girl student that I have
Yeah.
wears a mask every time I see them.
Every single
They
one.
never take it off. Every single one. And then the only time I'll ever see them without a mask is if they forgot it in their car when they got out.
I'm thinking too now, like when you talk about social anxiety and stuff, I remember wearing a mask a lot when it was required back, whatever, 4 or 5 years ago. And I remember that feeling of like this warm blanket over me where I don't have to react to anything around me. Like, I don't know, interacting with people and stuff. It's like, I completely understand that feeling of not being responsible for your reactions to anything or anyone around you, especially
Yeah.
with your face or smiling. And it's like just hiding behind it. And I understood it at that time. And I get it. I completely get it.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of comedians too who are talking about how on the surface, it looks like everything is perfect. But underneath the mask, you got like boogers hanging out. You didn't brush your teeth, and your breath smells like something
Shaving
died
too.
in there.
Yeah, like I heard that's what Japanese guys do too. They haven't shaved. I'm just gonna put my mask on. I don't need to do anything.
Yeah. And that reminds me. So you know that event that we do every year called Edogawa Rakuichi, right?
Yeah.
So we did one a few years ago.
Yeah.
At the original place where we always do it.
Yeah.
And when I was helping build the stage, after I'm done, I'm like, okay, let me get my mask. And I reach into my pocket and I realize my mask is not there. And I'm like, whoa, shoot, where is it? And I see a mask, exactly the same color, same material as mine on the ground near me. So I'm like, oh, there's my mask. I grab it, I put it on, and I almost vomit. I swear to you, no joke. I'm like,
what?
And I was like,
Really?
holy cow, what is this smell? I know that is not my breath. So I took it off and I went and I threw it in the trash.
Yeah,
And I was like, I wonder if somebody put my mask on. And then later on in the day, I was talking to somebody and I reached into my other pocket, just like, out of habit. And my mask was in my other pocket. So I was like, oh man, I took somebody else's mask by accident that they dropped on the ground. And that guy clearly didn't brush his teeth that day.
Man, yeah, see that. Actually, I do feel self-conscious now without a mask whenever I'm like standing close to somebody and talking to them, that if my breath stinks, I'm like, ugh. But when you wear a mask, you don't really have to worry about it that much.
That's true.
I don't know.
Very
There's
true.
a lot of good parts to wearing a mask, I think. But I just don't like doing it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the people who complain about the mask just didn't have a good mask, because the one that I have is pretty good. It stretches over time to fit your face perfectly. So it begins uncomfortable, but if you wear it for a few hours, it starts to stretch out, and then it's a foam one. So you can breathe and the air will come through, but the water droplets will not. So yeah. And then mental health professionals have raised concerns about this trend, indicating that constant mask wearing may be associated with social withdrawal tendencies, particularly among individuals with interpersonal insecurities. So now there's this term called mask dependency, and it's been used to describe this phenomenon where individuals feel uneasy or anxious when not wearing a mask in social situations. So like I said earlier about a little kid meeting somebody for the first time wanting to wear a mask because they feel insecure, versus when they're with their best friends, they likely wouldn't wear a mask. And then you said you heard college students cackling outside and they're with their nakama, their
buddies,
crew, right?
Yeah.
And then I also noticed like a difference in mask wearing in relation to the genders. For example, before the pandemic, there was no real reason for me or anyone around me to notice if there were more men or more women wearing masks. But then after the pandemic, some studies have indicated that women are more likely than men to continue wearing masks even after the mandates were lifted. So this study was done before the pandemic ended. And then in March 2023, a survey revealed that 29% of men reported wearing masks less frequently compared to 17% of women, suggesting that women maintain mask wearing habits longer than men. And then research from February 2023 found that the mask wearing rate was higher among females, with conformity to social norms being a significant factor influencing this behavior. So this one is less about insecurity and more about everyone's wearing a mask, I should wear a mask too. And then a study on Japanese university students in May 2023 showed a significant difference in gender mask wearing tendencies, with female students more inclined to continue wearing masks even when not mandated. We've talked about little kids, we've talked about junior high school students, we talked about 16 to 19-year-old girls. Now we're talking about college students. Masks are very prevalent now compared to before the pandemic. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's been part of Japanese culture for decades. So I don't know how this sounds to the American who's listening. To me, it just sounds like, and what, But I noticed it. And then since we're talking about masks and we're talking about illness, I've also noticed a change in people's attitudes towards being sick and not going to work. Or illness and absenteeism. So like before the pandemic, you would go to work even if you were kind of sick. I did this a few times. Did you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And then there's this term called presenteeism, right? Which means working while you're sick or working while you're ill. And they see this as kind of being dedicated to your job. And then this even totally happened to me because one of my former jobs, I called in sick this one morning and then my boss sounded upset with me. So I was like, okay, let me just go to work anyways. And then I wore a mask. And while I was there, my boss was looking at me like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, didn't you say you wanted me to come to work? And I came. And my boss was like, so you're not supposed to wear a mask because you're going to interface with kids. And then I continued doing my work. But after only like an hour, my boss was like, okay, yeah, you're clearly sick. Go home. And I went home.
So what was that person's thinking? That person's thinking was, you got to be dedicated to your job, but only up to a certain point.
My personal opinion, I think that they were worried that I was just hungover. But then when I came to work, I actually had a fever.
Oh,
so they sent me right back.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yes, it didn't trust me.
I get it. Yeah.
But during that time, I mean, there was a lot of weird, because, when you hire foreigners, they don't understand the culture. And then when you have a bunch of new hires and all of that clashes, it can become a pretty big problem. And I was already one of the senpais at the time, or the senior workers there. And then also before the pandemic, students were expected to attend school unless they had a fever or those kind of symptoms. So influenza, of course, don't go to school. But if you had like a massive runny nose, I noticed like so many kids coughing, sneezing, massive runny nose, not wearing a mask, going to school. I'm talking about little kids, okay, like first grade, second grade, third grade. But then after the pandemic, in March 2023, Japan officially eased the mask guideline, or the mask mandates. It's not even mandates, it's more like
strongly worded suggestions.
Yeah, exactly that. And they also de-emphasized the strict COVID era rules that includes like social distancing. So before they had these like markers on the chairs that said, do not sit here, right?
Yeah.
But the social expectations remained cautious. And then a survey in late 2023 found that many companies continued recommending or requiring employees to stay home when showing any cold-like symptoms, even if they were COVID negative. So it extends beyond schools. And then in schools, parents are now more likely to keep their children home even for like mild symptoms. And this is true with my family too. Before, if my kid was coughing, he would go to school. She would go to school. One of them or all of them would go to school despite having like a runny nose. And sometimes, I'm talking about before the pandemic, they wouldn't be wearing a mask. But after the pandemic, even just like a slight cough, my kids don't go to school. And then even if they don't feel well, they don't go to school. They have a stomachache, they don't go to school. Any minor thing, they just don't go to school.
Wow. That's a strong cultural shift, huh?
Yeah. And before we move on to the next part, I just wanted to talk about how I got an email from a woman at a company called Mount Melville. Never heard of it before, but they offered me to be able to access or have like early access to this graphic novel that they made. And it's about this dog named Kiva that gets left behind after a nuclear disaster, trying to survive in a world where nature and wild dogs have taken over. And it's set against the backdrop of the Fukushima disaster. And the whole vibe pretty much reminds me of this anime called Beck that I watched a long time ago. It's like, you ever heard of Beck?
No. Only from you, actually.
Okay, so
we talked about it.
Yeah, so Beck is like, basically it's this kid, this high school kid. He finds this dog on a street, and the dog's name is Beck. And the dog has like parts from like different dogs. Like it looks like a Frankenstein dog. And then he meets the owner of the dog. They become friends, and then they form a band together, and da-da-da-da-da. But the dog is like in the show.
Yeah.
And the vibe, the reason why it reminds me of that anime is because it's dramatic and fictional, but there's like a level of realism that makes it feel almost like it's non-fictional, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like for anybody who's listening to this podcast, if you're interested in pets and the bond between them and their owners, Kiva is actually a pretty good graphic novel to check out. This is not sponsored. They didn't offer me any money for this. I didn't get paid anything. So, they asked me. So I'm throwing them a bone. Pun intended.
Nice.
But yeah, getting back to the show. So I also noticed that there has been an increase in kids who don't go to school anymore. Like they just can't because of like social anxiety. Yeah, it was something that people knew about, but it wasn't really stigmatized or as prevalent as it is now. And then there were support systems in place for it, but it was very limited and kind of difficult to find because it's not centralized. And then after the pandemic, specifically in October 2023, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology, also known as MEXT, M-E-X-T, reported a high record of 299,048 students in elementary and junior high school who classified as phtoko or absent from school for 30 plus days.
Mhm.
And that's a 22.1% increase from the previous year. That's a lot of people, man, just deciding. It's not like they're just deciding they can't go to school. They have like some serious anxiety issues. And the MEX attributed the rise to factors including mental and emotional distress from disrupted social development, difficulties reintegrating after prolonged isolation, and then growing parental understanding and acceptance of school refusal as a legitimate issue, not merely laziness or rebellion. And then a separate 2023 panel reported recommending expanding free school alternatives and mental health support, signaling growing institutional recognition. So yeah, it's a lot easier for kids now to also find help regarding this issue versus before. So that's like the silver lining for people who were suffering before the pandemic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have students who also can't go to school anymore or couldn't, and then they can now. It's a mess, or it was a mess, and it's still working its way back to normal.
I can imagine, like, if that was me and I'm like, man, I don't want to go to school, but then now there's a bunch of reasons where like, yeah, it's legitimate. Actually, you should stay home. I'm like, oh, great. I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm not going to go for a month. Oh man, that must be what's happening now. Like all the other kids that used to like probably were forced to go even though they didn't want to go before.
Yeah.
Now the floodgates are open. Now it's like, yeah, you can stay.
Yeah, but it's really hard to determine where the line is between them really having a mental issue and them just taking advantage of the new mentality towards it.
Yeah.
And it's a risk we shouldn't take, right? Because you're gambling with potentially with people's lives, especially considering that the suicide rate in Japan is pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to compare it to anywhere else because I don't know what the suicide rates are for other countries at the moment.
Yeah.
But I have been told, you hear about the stories, people jumping in front of the train, and then they end up putting up these walls. Now they have these gates that open and close at the stations, right? Of course, not all the stations, but a lot of the stations have these rails that have gates on them and open. And some stations even have like a full-on wall to protect people. Yeah. So if you're having any kind of mental problems, please, and you live in Japan, please seek help because there's a lot of help compared to before that's available. And then you even told me in a previous episode that your own company has their own. Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah. They offer mental health counseling, at least certain number of sessions per year, not the whole thing for free, but you get at least a few for free, and you can use it. You take advantage of it, and it's even in English. It's translated, easy to find, easy to look up. They set you up. You give them a call. I've used it. Life isn't easy, man. Not for anybody. So you gotta want to help yourself, no matter what age you are. That's my message to all the hikikomoris.
And then to take a break from this kind of dark talk, let's move on to tourism, which is going to be a different kind of dark talk.
A different shade.
I mean, if you think of like a place has a booming tourism industry, you think positive, but then you think of the side effects and you think of the negative. And then before the pandemic, Japan experienced a significant influx of tourists with 31.9 million international visitors, and popular destinations like Kyoto faced challenges related to over-tourism, including overcrowding and environmental concerns. So this one is less to do with what's happening, at least what's going viral on social media and the news every once in a while recently. But then after the pandemic, there's been a surge in those numbers. So in 2024, Japan welcomed a record-breaking 36.87 million international tourists, surpassing pre-pandemic levels by approximately 7%. And then the trend continued into January 2025 with 3.78 million international visitors, marking a 40.6% increase compared to the same month in 2019. So 40% versus the year right before the pandemic. That is a massive increase in tourists. Yep. And then projections for 2025 estimate that Japan will receive 40.2 million inbound travelers, which reflects a 8.9% increase over 2024. So 8.9 sounds like it's small because over 2020, it's compared to 2024. But if you're comparing it to 2019, it's massive. It's like more than double. Let me just give some more context. So for example, in Kyoto, the surge in tourists has led to severe congestion, particularly in areas like the historic Sannenzaka Street, raising concerns among residents and local authorities.
Oh my God, dude, that place, I don't know if we're talking about the same place, but I just want to say that these places were already crowded years ago.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God.
And then imagine what it's like now.
Man.
And then in response, measures such as boosting trash collection, running express buses to key tourist sites, and planning infrastructure improvements have been implemented to alleviate congestion. So there's a lot more buses. And then the trash collection, man, come on, tourists. You come to a clean country that you know is clean and you can't help but make it dirty. Come on.
I haven't seen this, but I'm sure that that's happened.
Since the pandemic finished, I've seen a lot of people, like with my own eyes, just littering. And it's so annoying because when I read online, people are saying, wow, Japan is so clean. I can't believe it's so clean. I can't believe it's so clean. And then you come here and just put the trash on the ground.
Jeez.
What the Anyways, Mount Fuji. So, to address overcrowding and environmental degradation, Yamanashi Prefecture introduced a daily cap of 4,000 climbers on the Yoshida Trail and imposed a mandatory 2,000 yen climbing fee starting in 2024.
Whoa, really?
By the way, it's 2025 right now, in case you're wondering. Despite these measures, challenges persist with reports of increased deaths linked to bullet climbing, which means rapid ascent without proper rest, prompting further safety concerns.
Jeez.
So if you're listening to this right now and you want to visit Mount Fuji and you're excited to get to the top, don't rush. You might die.
Man.
You don't want to die.
Yeah, I got I got really bad mountain sickness when me and my wife climbed Mount Fuji. Yeah, it's pretty bad, man. And we took it easy. We had a guide.
Wow, I've never made it to the top before. Every time I tried to go as a kid, it was always snowed in. Like
we didn't even make it to the top. We made it to the very last station.
Can people go to the very top?
Yeah, you can. So there, we stopped at the last station before you go to the very, very top, and then they called us like, "All right, whoever wants to go, we're going now." And I was like, "I cannot go," so I stayed.
Like you wanted to throw up and you had a headache?
Yeah, yes.
And then since we're talking about the changes of the pandemic, we can't ignore the adoption of remote work. Before the pandemic, remote work was pretty much a rare thing in Japan, with a strong cultural preference for in-person collaboration, especially long office hours, which is still true now. And of course, things like Zoom didn't exist at the time, or I don't know if it did, but nobody knew what it was. I mean, I was using Skype and FaceTime, and then all of a sudden there's this Zoom. What is Zoom? It's Skype, but with like more stuff in it. And then during the peak of the pandemic, remote work saw a significant increase. A survey conducted in 2023 indicated that only 24.8% of employees nationwide and 38.1% in the Tokyo metropolitan area were engaged in remote work, marking a decline from previous years. So yeah, it did go up really fast and then it went down really fast. And furthermore, reports suggest that over 70% of Japanese companies have ceased offering remote work options to their employees. So pretty much everywhere that had it doesn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me that you had it. Why don't you tell me how it was for you? Like, how was remote work during the pandemic for you?
Everybody was basically working from home most of the time. I remember when I first started. And then slowly over the following months and year or so, they started implementing a coming back to the office policy. And I think it was just in line with, I think, probably what the company was seeing with other big companies at the time, where everybody's trying to come back into the office, trying to get people back into the office. And now it's officially, everybody is basically back into the office except for, once a week you can work from home is fine. But other than that, you should be in. That's the expectation.
If remote work is something that a lot of people want, and they do because they did surveys that shows that 41.5% of Japanese professionals, they want like a flexible work schedule where they have more time to be at home.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, Japan is suffering from the aging crisis and the birth rate is really low, right? So at the end of the episode, we're going to talk about what the Japanese government is doing to try to satisfy those people and to also deal with the aging crisis at the same time. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about the shift towards cashless payments.
Mm-hmm.
Because in this show, we've talked about repeatedly about how Japan is a cash society predominantly,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of changed. And a lot of it has to do with the pandemic, and a lot of it also has to do with the Olympics. Before the pandemic, of course, it was a mostly cash-based economy. And then cashless transactions, of course, existed. I mean, I had my Apple Watch and I was using it to pay for stuff at the konbini and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was only approximately 13.2% of total transactions in 2010. But after the pandemic, there was a massive growth in cashless transactions. So by 2023, the cashless payment ratio in Japan rose to 39.3%, nearing the government's target of 40% by 2025, which indicates a substantial shift in consumer behavior and payment infrastructure. And then in 2024, cashless transactions accounted for 42.8% of personal consumption, surpassing the government's initial target ahead of schedule, which is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And the Japanese government has actively promoted digital payments as part of its broader vision of achieving a cashless society by the end of 2025. For example, initiatives such as the standardization of QR code payments and cashless payments at self-service kiosks have been implemented to facilitate this transition. And I've been using the self-service kiosks. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I mean, this one time I was paying at the supermarket downstairs and I went to the register. I scanned all my stuff and I was talking to my daughter trying to teach her how to do it. And then after I scanned everything, I put it in the shopping bag and I walked out. I totally forgot to pay. And then I just heard this lady like, "Okeksan, okeksan, okeksan."
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah. And then I was like, oh, somebody messed up. She went straight to me. And I was like, oh, I was so embarrassed.
Oh, man,
I
dude,
run all the
that's
way
funny.
back. And
I
she
know
actually looked angry at me.
yeah, I know what you mean when you hear that and you think like, oh, somebody's in trouble.
Yeah. So I went back and I paid.
Man, no, but that happened to me. Oh, that happened to me recently because I love using the self kiosks too. And I'm in this routine, before I go to work, I go to the convenience store, I get like a coffee or something. And it's like my muscle memory is so fast now. It's like I'm not even thinking about what I'm doing at all. I'm thinking about something completely else, like something completely different. And so it's like beep, 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 beep. And then I remember, there was one time where I was like, oh man, I didn't pay for it. And I just walked back in and I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't pay for this or something. I think I just went and I paid for it. But that can happen, man. I'm sure that happens. A lot of people just walk out.
Yeah. And I noticed even because there was another time where I gave my son a lollipop and then I paid for everything and my son was holding the lollipop the whole time. And then I walked all the way out and I saw him with the lollipop and I was like, oh. I walked back and I noticed the look on the staff's face, on the cashier's face when I was walking out. He kind of had this like, kind of look on his face. And I was like, what's wrong with this guy? And then, I walked out. And when I came back, I was like, oh, sumimasen, wasurimashita. And then I forgot.
Yeah.
And then I paid. And then his face like totally flipped and he was a really nice guy from there. So I think he just, he noticed it, but didn't want to say anything. And then when I came back, he realized I'm not a dick. So he was being nice after that.
But apparently they have in China, they have all these unmanned stores now where you just do that, right? You just grab your stuff and walk out.
Oh yeah. I think there's an Amazon store that has that now. Like as soon as you walk in, Amazon will scan something you have on you.
In Seattle or something.
And then you put everything in your basket and when you walk out, it's already tagged to you and it'll just charge to your Amazon account.
Yeah.
Crazy. I don't know the full details of it. I probably got something wrong, but that's what I remember from it.
They have them in China too. Because I remember in my old job, we were going to these exhibitions and trade shows, and they were exhibiting like, yeah, just walk in, grab your stuff, walk out.
I don't know if we have those in Japan yet.
Yeah.
We don't have them in my area. But yeah, there is still a demand for cash in Japan, especially for establishments run by really old individuals.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is restaurants. Like if you're just some old guy that works alone, and when I say old, I mean like your 80s. Like they don't want to have to deal with learning the new technologies and
Yeah.
stuff. They just want to continue doing everything day by day exactly the same.
Yeah.
And that one I have no problem. It's kind of easy to tell nowadays. It's kind of easy to tell when a place is cash only. You kind of just look from the outside and you're like, okay, there's one old guy by himself. This is probably cash only. You go in there. Do you guys accept credit card? No.
No.
Okay. But by the way, man, in one station away, in Nishikasai, there's this, I don't know if it counts as an izakaya, but it's like this bar/restaurant where like there's no menu, right? There's like everything is on like this wooden thing on the wall. And it has
Okay.
all kanji, right? It's not in English at all. So if you don't speak Japanese, you can't order anything here. And it's this old guy by himself. And then this lady who's pretty old, but not as old. And she's like the waitress. But she has like this belt that looks like Batman's like utility belt.
Mhm.
And it has like a crap load of coins in it. And then she receives all cash and she gives
Wow.
change in all cash, of course. And everything is done instantly, man.
Wow.
Her math is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was just sitting there with my father-in-law because he likes that place.
Oh, wow.
They have this thing there called kawaebi, which means like
River
I guess
shrimp.
it means river shrimp, but like these tiny little shrimps.
Mhm.
I know they have them in foreign countries too, in Japanese restaurants in foreign countries too. Very delicious, and we go there to eat that and have a few drinks before. And yeah, we would just sit there and watch this lady do her math.
Wait, so it's like it's not even like she's has a notepad and she's adding it to your tab or anything, right? You're
There's
just
no
buying
papers,
it
man.
instantly.
It's on the spot. Every time you order, you pay. Yeah, and then the reason why it's so impressive is because every customer's ordering, right? And she's dealing with so many people, one after another, and it doesn't phase her. Okay, and then now we're at the last one. This is something that's like really important, so I saved it for the end. But before the pandemic, Japan was renowned for its demanding work culture characterized by long hours and a strong emphasis on physical presence in the workplace. And in my mind, I'm just thinking overwork, just working your ass off to the point where you just don't have a life anymore. Like work is your life. It's not work to live, it's live to work. And then, but after the pandemic, specifically now, the Tokyo metropolitan government has started this initiative where starting in this month, April 2025, they will offer employees the option of a 4-day work week. And this policy aims to promote work-life balance and address the city's declining birth rate by providing employees with more personal time. Governor Yuriko Koike emphasized the importance of flexible work styles, stating that the initiative seeks to ensure that individuals do not have to sacrifice their careers due to life events such as childbirth or child care, which has been a problem for a very long time. I mean, even in my case, whenever my wife is pregnant, we just have to gaman, the Japanese word gaman, just endure the hardship that's going to come with that versus how it is in the States where, you know, the government takes care of you. When childbirth comes, you have those really long
Maternity leaves.
leaves.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But yeah, so let me talk about the details. So employees can opt to work 4 days a week with 3 days off, adjusting their daily working hours accordingly. A new childcare partial leave system will allow parents with children in grades 1 to 3 of elementary school to reduce their working hours by up to 2 hours per day. And then Japan has been facing a significant demographic challenge with the fertility rate dropping to 1.2 in 2023, which is well below the replacement level of 2.1 needed for population stability. So they really need to get that number to practically double what it is now in order to solve this aging crisis, which they are having a lot of trouble with. And the number of babies born in Tokyo decreased by more than 15% between 2012 and 2022, highlighting the urgency of addressing the declining birth rate. Just for broader implication, this initiative reflects a growing global trend towards shorter work weeks to enhance productivity and employee well-being. And by adopting this policy, Tokyo aims to set a precedent that may influence private companies and other regions to consider similar flexible work arrangements. So, man, I really hope that everybody follows suit with this, because this problem is huge. And then even I see like comments online, people talking trash about Japan just because of this crisis. I don't know anybody that works for the Tokyo metropolitan government at the moment, though. I mean, I used to have a student that did, but he moved to like pretty far away. So I haven't been able to talk to him about it.
Yeah. And okay, so this point is also to do with what's different before the pandemic and after too, right? And you see it like, I mean, if you're living here like me and you see it like, you see sometimes these politicians come out and start saying like, yeah, we talked about this in one of the episodes before. I'm an ikemen or ikumen.
Ikumen, yeah.
Yeah. Or I'm standing up for like taking care of your family rather than living for your company or something like that. So this is just another like huge step. And I don't know if it's going to have an effect on the crisis. We don't know, but
I guess we'll find out, because like even the Ikumen initiative didn't work the way they wanted, because what they wanted was the birth rate to rise. But what ended up happening is just the fathers became more involved in the family and the birth rate continued to decline.
Oh, really? Wait. So that was like how many years ago already? Ikumen?
I don't even know at this point. I forgot. It's like when I saw the graph, Ikumen started and then it went up for like a very short time and then just went back down and continued to go down.
Man. But you said that the reason the government is doing it to set an example, right? To make it seem like
it's one of the reasons, yeah. I guess we'll see. That's it for today's episode. If you have any questions or any comments, you know where to let me know. And until next time, excuse me, Masana. See ya.
Excuse me, Masen.